Hello and welcome everybody to today's Art of Home Staging Training Live Day. I hope everyone is well. We've had so many people message in from our beautiful boutique cohort telling us that they've either got kids with COVID or they're in isolation or they're working. And so we're expecting tiny handful of people to be present on this call today, but we're going ahead with it because there's so many of you that are enrolled that we really want to be able to have access to this training. So I can see that we have one other person on at the moment. So we're going to go ahead with this training today. So that all of you who have messaged in going, oh my God, I can't make it, so that we can deliver it for you as well. So as Fiona would have explained, usually this training does take around 6 hours, and that's because we often have between 10 and 15 people on, which is our general intake size for each and every one of our enrollments. However, that is because we actually go around and do hot seat work with each and every person that is on the call. As we mentioned, because we have, I think, 2 or 3 of our existing students that are able to join us today, we are going to be a lot more compressed and a lot shorter. And so what we're going to do to dive straight in is just to quickly, because I know it can be really hard for those that are listening to this in a recording after the training day, I'm going to very quickly just touch base. I think we've got maybe Kerry and
Yes.
we've got Michelle on the call now. So I don't know if you guys are able to ignite up your videos so everyone can see your faces. I'll just ask you to, hi, Kerry. Hey,
Hello.
Michelle. Don't know if Michelle got that video request. Anyway, so what we'll do to start, as you guys would have heard me just say, we have a large cohort that will be listening to this later today because they're unable to make it. So it is still nice to be able to have a chat to the people on. So Kerry, if you just want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about why you're doing the Art of Home Staging course and wanting to learn about property styling, that would be great. So go for it.
Oh, I'm hopeless about talking about myself. I've worked 43 years in administration management with education, and the whole time I just loved anything to do with interior design and all that sort of thing. I also have an interior design degree, and I just thought it's about time I followed my passion. And so I've done the course and I absolutely loved it, and just
That's
excited
good.
about today as well.
Perfect. Michelle, I don't know if you're able to hear us. I'm just seeing if I can help
I can
you.
hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm not.
hey, Michelle, how are you?
Okay. Look, I haven't got the video on because I'm not very well.
Oh, that's okay. It's totally okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, even though you're not well.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about you, Michelle. What's motivated you to do the course?
I'm just very interested in interior design and property, and I just thought I'd just do it because I'm at I don't know if I'm going to do it as a career. I'm just doing it because I just want to learn.
Do you know what? That absolutely floats my boat. And I say this on every training day that we have, that I get, I'm a massive believer in just learning because you want to learn. And a lot of people that look at studying with us are really like, am I going to make the change? Am I going to start a new career? And I know for me, I just did a course in how to build an efficient ergonomic greenhouse because I wanted to know how to do it, you know. And so I love that there's still that in us. I think sometimes I talk to my teenage children, 2 of them are teenagers, and they're like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? What do I do at uni? And I'm like, you know what? Do whatever interests you right now, because you're probably going to do a whole world of courses and you're probably going to have like 4 professions in your life. So that's good to hear. Michelle, I don't know if you heard when I think you were first getting on, of our 15 students that we have in this intake, there's only like 2 or 3 of you that are actually able to make this call, which is wonderful and boutique and lovely. So I'll be teaching obviously with you guys and also being really conscious of the people that are listening online as well later. So I think Fee mentioned it I think Fee mentioned it in her emails that she sent out to you guys, because a lot of this is based on participants. A lot of it is based on people asking questions and going through their roadblocks that they're having. This will obviously be quite compressed, but it's still going to be just awesome and yummy. So we don't do death by PowerPoint. I will pop up a keynote, but that's purely when people are listening back in the recording. Sometimes it's nice to look at something other than my mug. So I am going to pop up a keynote and then get going. So how does that sound to you guys?
Sounds
Great.
perfect.
Perfect. I'm sorry you're feeling unwell, Michelle. That sucks.
Yes, not ideal.
Not ideal, but we're in it. We're in it, and that's all that matters. All right. Can you guys see this now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So a little bit of housekeeping. Not a lot of housekeeping, a little bit of housekeeping, which is really all around, you know, if you're having trouble with video or lag, or I start to look like I'm a robot, obviously just close down your other browsers. Cups of tea and coffee, gins after maybe 10 are completely welcome. It's not school by any means. So, you know, if we're all sort of sitting here and I go, anyone want a cuppa? We can pop up, grab a cuppa and come back. It's one of the joys. I don't know where, Kerry, I know you're not far away from me. Where are you based, Michelle?
I'm based in Sydney. I'm at North Ryde.
Well, you'd be pouring with rain too right now.
Yes.
Yes. So I actually woke this morning and I went, it's a wonderful day not to be on a work site today. And so let's make the most of being able to go grab a cuppa whenever we want. So for those of you who don't know who IHS is, we're effectively an institute that works in an advisory, in a consolidation, and in a support mechanism to the property styling industry. We started off just delivering property styling courses and soon expanded into delivering or having a membership for our students, which I'm super excited about. I might tell you guys about it later. I haven't told anyone else yet, but I made the decision the other day to completely blow it up and change it, which I'm super excited about. And we also offer, you know, mentoring, hands-on training for those that need it or want it when it's available post-COVID, and pretty much all things property styling in Australia. So we get feedback all the time. The entire IHS is purely member-driven and student-driven. So it was created for students and members, and literally the days like today, it's not what I think you need to know. All of that is in the course, what I think you need to know. But what today and days like today are about, it's about all the things that you as a cohort of students and members and people interested in the industry and interested in property styling want to know about. So I'm going to skip to, because that's very dry stuff, how today is going to work. So pretty much today I'm going to be going through with you, because often I find people don't know what they don't know. And often they're unsure about what they don't know until we start to throw ideas around, until we start to dialogue about different things. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start, the number one question I get asked everywhere I go is, what would you have done differently? So we're going to start with that today. And then also we're going to be going through, I have a top list of the things that people love to know about. And so we're going to be covering those people that have asked on these training days. So every training day we update it and go through what people have asked. And then that will hopefully help you as you're going along, write down the things that you've got questions about, or go, hey, Naomi, that's great, but what about this? That'll hopefully help get those ideas flowing about things that you want to ask about whilst we're on this call together, because it is all about you guys, all about you guys. So these are generally the things that people ask me about: quoting, proposals, contracts, advertising, how to get clients, where to find stock, what minimum stock they need, if they're even going to hold stock, you know, where to spend, where to skim. You know, these are the sorts of things that I find that people are really after, and what I've learned along the way. So we're going to start with this. How does that sound, guys? Is that
Great.
good?
Perfect.
I'm super casual, so please feel free to just butt in, put your hand up, go, hey, what about this? Like, there, we don't have to be formal in any way, shape, or form on the call today. So what I wish I knew when I started out, I wished I had found an awesome insurance broker to work with, because I must admit, when I first started, I way overpaid with insurance. Our industry is so new in Australia. When I started out, our industry had been in Australia for like maybe 10 or 15 years, which is really young. It had been overseas for many, 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 many decades, but not over here. Now we're probably 30 years into our industry over here, which is great, but at the same time, it's also very young compared to many, many of the professions that we do have. And so it's a very unknown industry. And often when you go to a broker, they're like, what? You want me to insure stuff that you're going to put in someone else's house? What? You're not going to have access to it? How does that work? And there's all different sorts of insurances that either from a stock or from a professionalism perspective, you need to think about and you need to consider. And so it's really important that early on you develop a relationship with someone that can help you with that. We do have someone that we use all the time and all our members use that we can absolutely get details to you from. You just need to email through to us and we can totally share those. And it's important that you work with a broker that helps you with insurances that are appropriate for your moment in business, because as your business grows or changes, or as your practice changes, however you decide to work, if you decide to work in the industry, your insurance needs will change. And so it's really important that you're flexible with that and that you have someone that understands the growth and shrinkage or changing directions of business. So that's one thing I wish I did, because I was just lucky in the first sort of 3 years that nothing bad happened in my business, because I tell you, I was very much underinsured and paying overs in my premiums. Next thing I wished I invested more in my website. And by that I don't mean I wished I'd paid someone to custom code like a $10,000 website for me. Not at all. That is not what I mean at all. What I mean is I wish that I had thought more about what I wanted people to think of me and feel about me when they landed on my page. So what does my website say about me, and how does my website make people feel? So how does my branding affect my potential clients or people that follow me or want to be involved with me? I'm definitely not suggesting that we need to be spending lots of money on websites, but I'm just suggesting that I wished I'd invested more thought into it. Because, our websites and our social medias nowadays are our first foot forward. And so I really wish that I had done better with that. I wished I'd started collecting data earlier. So many, as you get on in business, you'll notice, or many of you probably have already been in different businesses of different forms, and you will know that data, collecting data and a database drives business, and it's a very valuable way to be able to contact and keep contacting your clients. And so I wished early on, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me, please. I wish very early on that I had started collecting a database of my clients, rather than, simply be, yes, I had a client and I have their details and they're in my MyOb or my Xero or wherever they are. I wish that I'd started collecting them in a form of database where I could reach out to them, where I could talk to them, where I could interact with them. I really wish that I had done that. And I didn't. So I probably only started collecting a database of clients, or even leads, not even people that I've worked with, but people that, people that might have made an inquiry and I could have reached back out to. All those sorts of people. I certainly didn't collect them and collate them in a way that I could actually nurture them. Okay, social media working for me. I don't know about you guys, but social media can be daunting for so many people. I don't know how you guys feel about it, whether you have Insta accounts or TikTok accounts or Facebook accounts, like pages for businesses or the like. But one thing I do know is it's really important not to be sucked into the social media vortex where you are you're kind of wrapped up in that. I'm starting out, I need to have an amazing presence, I need to post every day, I need to have this much engagement and this many likes and this many followers. Because the one thing that I wished I'd known, rather than stressing and stressing and stressing about that, is I wished I had known that it has to work for me. It doesn't matter how big your following is. If they're not people that are potential clients, then they're actually of no use to you in your business. And so I really wish that penny had dropped for me earlier, and I really wish that I'd had a strategy that was purely around making social media work for me. How do you feel about social media, Kerry?
I use Facebook a little. My children all have their own business and they use social media. So, yes, I go on there and I like their posts and yours. I'm not one to really post very much at all myself. And, I'm a bit nervous, I suppose, of putting anything on there for fear that I might say it wrong or do it wrong. And, yeah.
And that's one of the things, right? Social media for so many people can be paralyzing, really paralyzing. And so it's important that we're really conscious that it is an extraordinarily important part of your business, but it is not the be all and end all. And sometimes there's so much time and energy put into, I guess, the fighting the paralysis that it could be used elsewhere in business.
Yes.
So that's what I wish I had, that's certainly what I wished I'd sorted out way earlier on.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I wished I knew my costs. Michelle, what's your background? I know your background, Kerry. What's your background, Michelle?
My background is I was in retail, in the medical profession, pharmacy.
Yep.
For years. I sort of retired last year.
Congratulations.
Beg your pardon?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm retired. I was unwell, so I retired. So and now I'm just looking and doing things that I love. I'm always been interested in.
Heavenly. Well, both of your backgrounds, it won't be any surprise about knowing costs. One of the things I brought up in that list to start with about what people are always asking about is around costings. And so one of the things that I find is that people will come to me and say, how much should I charge? And I get that, because it's an industry that varies so much around the country, and so much even within each state. Like the way you price, how you price, it varies on your business model. It varies on your overheads. And so the one thing I always keep coming back to with people is you can't price if you don't know what your overheads and your costs are. If you do not know your costings, you just literally you can't price it out. Absolutely impossible. And so that's something that's super important. And I think it's really, really essential to know your costings. Everything from your storage to your website to your insurances, to practice in any way, you obviously need public liability. So that's a big one for me, knowing your costs. And without people knowing that, and a lot of people go, well, how do I know what my costs are going to be before I start? And the simple answer is you often can't. You can't know. And so at the beginning, or you won't know. And so at the beginning, it's really important to be patient and visit it often. Keep records as, new softwares and new things start coming into alignment, which is awesome. It's then great to go, right, I need to revisit my costs every month to make sure that I've included all the things that I'm bringing on board as I'm starting business, because it will vary and it will grow. And anyone that has, mentoring with me that says, how do I know what my costs are? how do I know what price? I'm like, if you do not know your costs, you literally, you're stabbing in the dark. Yep, you could totally research competitors' costs and you could price yourself at that, above that, just below that. But then when you go to your accountant a year in or 2 years in or 6 months in, and he says, you know, what sort of profitability are you running at? You'll be like, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what my profitability is. So yeah, it's a really, really important one to know. And just like anything in life, I don't know about you guys, it's the equivalent of when you get in your kitchen and you're too busy, and so you just decide to throw everything in the cupboard. It is so much harder to then bring everything back out and sort it than it is to have just sorted it the first time that it went in, right? And so it's similar with, I find, every aspect about my business, the hindsight, the clarity that I have in going, you know what, if only I'd captured all those people, you know, if only I'd done this, or if only I'd done that. And so with our costs, if someone said to me now, it's like when people have a large, I remember we were probably 6 years in before we got inventory tracking software, and we did have a lot of stock because we weren't in an opportunity where we could buy, where we could hire, because we weren't in Sydney or Melbourne or Adelaide. And I remember someone said to me, how long did it take for you to inventory all your stock into your tracking software? I'm like, actually 2 years. It took 2 years because we were still functional. We still had stock coming in and out and in and out. And it was about catching as it came in. And so, you know, if I started a new business today, it would be inventoried from the moment. So knowing my costs is a big one. And this is one, keeping better records to benchmark from. This is one that people often go, well, why would I benchmark? It's just me working in business. Most people that are in property styling, because it is a physical business, 100%. It's, you know, you do have to hustle some days. It's a great way to keep fit. And there will be a time where often you'll be like, I really wish that I had an extra set of hands, or I really wish that I could have had that day off to go to wherever it was and had someone that knew and understood my business, which is great. However, at the same time, when you then go to train, or you then go to onboard, or you go to performance manage someone, it's really, really hard to give feedback, to know what to expect of them if you haven't got any benchmarking, if you don't know how long it takes for you to usually do a consult, or usually do a quote, or usually pack for a job or select for a job. If you don't have that data and it isn't accurate and up to date, you know, that can make it really hard to do those other elements. This is one that I think no one is immune to. I've never met anyone yet that is immune to the wonderful self-doubt that exists in most or all of us, for whatever reasons, and it varies very much throughout all of us. But I really do wish that I had less self-doubt. Just like we talked about with paralysis on social media, the amount of energy parcels. So I'm a massive believer we have a certain amount of energy parcels in a day, and they get replenished each night usually. And we get to choose who and how we spend them on or with, if that makes sense. And so one thing that I'm super conscious of is, for so many years, and even still now, I'm not immune to it now, I spend energy parcels on, you know, getting rid of, or fighting against, or having conversations with the everyday, or the every week, or the new level, same devil self-doubt that creeps in. So I actually wish that I had more people around me that would speak openly about this. I wish that I had processes and ways to process and deal with this, to minimize the amount of time and energy that I spent on having conversations with myself around self-doubt, without doubt. When you guys think about, you know, I know, Michelle, you're learning this because you want to learn, but for all of those listening later, and for Kerry that's online as well now, and for anyone, you know, even if you are doing this purely because you really want to know and you want to learn, Do you guys have strategies now to help prevent the spiral that can occur when you head down that self-doubt path, or that, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? Is this a waste of my time or energy? Do you have a way that you guys process that now?
Oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. I'll let you take over, Michelle, first.
Not consciously. I suppose we all have our times of self-doubt.
We do.
I sort of just tend to get on with it. I've also got a fabulous partner who's very good at engaging with me, and he's less emotive than I am, and he brings me down and sort of grounds me. So I'm very lucky in that respect.
See, that's a great thing, right? And I think part of this comes with age, that we realize that there are people around us that we can help anchor us, that when we're running away. It was 2 weeks ago, I called one of my girlfriends, who's also an entrepreneur, and I said to her, I know what I'm thinking and feeling right now is 100% irrational, and I know this and I know that and I know this, but I'm still about to throw the baby in the bathwater out. And she went, that's okay. And she did the whole grounding thing. She's like, right, let's think about this. And if all else fails, Naomi, make no decisions and do no acting today. There's that whole, because we are very emotive creatures often, which is one of the reasons why we're beautifully talented in the creative world. But yeah, it can be a challenge. So that's awesome. So you have your support network and you know where to go and who to talk to if you ever are in that place. And that whole, what you just said, Michelle, which is really interesting, that whole, well, I'm just a doer. Sometimes that's actually a strategy. Like going, right, well, in my head, I'm saying all these sorts of things to myself. I'm actually just going to do some doing. I'm just going to do some doing. The things I know I do well, the things that are easy, the things that I'm in flow with, I'm going to do some of that. And often that can break the blockage of the self-doubt, because the energy starts to flow and you start to get in a groove just with simple stuff. File stuff in your office, organize your course material, whatever it might be. Sometimes just the act of doing allows you to break through any sort of blocks that you might be hitting.
Okay.
What about you, Kerry? Oh, you're muted, beautiful girl. Just unmute. There you go.
Sorry. All good?
Yeah.
I'm really good at doubting myself in everything, but it's because I think it is a talent for me, but it's because I have such high expectations and standards that I set for myself. I expect nothing less than what I want it to look like, and it's usually my kids and my family and friends that say to me, like, you'd be great at that. Oh my God, your place is stunning. Like, they're the ones that bring me back to think, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I have got a bit of a talent there. So, but even then, I'll hear that and I get a bit of wave of confidence, and then the self-doubt does creep back in. But I just have to, and I'm determined to keep pushing through, and just trust myself and back myself, I guess.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's cool, because that is certainly that. I wish I'd had less self-doubt. I wish I'd spent way less energy on that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so some of that does come with age. I think we realize as we get older that it's always there in some way. We need to have those strategies to help go round it, sidestep it, burst through it, whatever it might be for us. And
but I think it's a good thing too, because I find if I feel too confident about something, I don't put as much energy into perfecting it, and then it doesn't end up looking exactly how I wanted it to look. So I think, no, I'd rather have the self-doubt and push myself the whole time.
And that's a really important point, Kerry, because is it self-doubt, or is it just really wanting to do a good job sometimes?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Sometimes things can get confused.
Yes.
Where it's like, I think there's a fine line between them. I think, I used to always say to people when they'd be like, I'm so nervous, it's my first job, I don't know if I can do it. I'm like, if you weren't nervous, you really wouldn't care about it. Like,
that's right.
If you had no nerves at all and just pure blasé being very different to confidence,
true.
It's healthy sometimes.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
All right. My next one is, I wish that I'd built my stock slowly in a tested market. So there are so many different models to property styling business that you could 100% move into without doubt. And you know, one of the models is holding your own inventory or your own stock, whether that be your soft furnishings, or I call it soft stock, or whether that be your hard stock, whichever one of those it might be. And so with the soft stock, I find that lots of people end up holding a little bit of that themselves. So that might be, I call soft stock anything that you can lift yourself: a bedside, a side table, a dining chair, a piece of art, a lamp, a cushion, an accessory. So things that don't need two people and don't need a truck. That's how I categorize soft stock. Stuff that you could have yourself for sure. Many people that live in capital cities for many, many, many years choose to absolutely have their own inventory, but they may also still have a little bit of soft stock, because often it's a soft stock that is a signature to your style, you know, that can set you out, as in not as in better or worse, but as in different, or really show your flair. But one thing that I didn't do, because, you know, we all love to shop. We wouldn't love to property style if we didn't love to shop. It's one of the best parts of our industry. And so there is an element of, when you can be first starting out, of going, oh my God, oh, that's on sale. I really love that. That would work anywhere. And then it's like, oh God, I remember I bought a wall thing that is amazing. And it took me 7 years to use it, but it was on sale and I really loved it. And it took me 7 years. It probably cost me thousands of dollars in storing that piece of stock. So what I wish I'd done first is that I built my stock slowly, and I built it over time. So I had, for example, you know, I found in Newcastle that many people didn't have large, amazing lamps. They just didn't. And they didn't have big enough rugs in their living room. And so I wish that I'd paid attention to that and actually looked at what the market needed before I started to buy stock. Then I could just buy the stock that they need. It's as simple as that, really. Instead of buying stock based on what I thought people needed. Because often two very different things. Now, I do wish that I found great suppliers earlier. I bought way too much stuff retail, way too much stuff. And so I really, really wished that I had bought many more things wholesale. And to do that, the best way to do it is to go to the AGHA, so the Australian Gift and Homewares Association, or the Reed Gift Fairs. So they run twice a year in Melbourne and Sydney. So they alternate. Melbourne and Sydney, beginning of the year, I think, is Sydney, end of the year, I think, is Melbourne. And they are such a great way to find suppliers and talk to suppliers, because it's very different to owning a shop. You know, you're not going to be buying at volume. You do not need 60 of one thing, which might be a minimum quantity. So you want to be looking for suppliers that, one, have stock that can work across multiple genres, but two, that also are willing to work with low minimum orders and low quantities of orders. You know, that you might need to buy 2 vases, not 10 vases. So yeah, I would totally look at that without doubt. That'd be a great place to start. There's a lot of rubbish at both of those fairs, like so much. But there's also so many great suppliers that if you take your time, speed past the ones that you're like, wow, they're really bad earrings, I'm not going to use earrings in property styling. Or wow, they're beautiful scarves, but I'm not going to be styling with scarves. And go to the linens and the accessories and the kitchenware and the furniture stock, all those ones that you guys are going to be using. Ask about things like minimum first order, minimum repeat orders, minimum number of units, lead times, all those sorts of things, because you know the markups are naturally, and so they should be, because overheads in our country are big. I would be looking at, you know, you'd be looking at least saving. So if for example, if you buy something for $100 from a wholesaler, a retailer will sell it to you for $200. So you can always guarantee, if you go to a retail shop and they have a 50% off sale, buy it there, be the same as a wholesaler. So just be really conscious of where you're buying your items from. The other thing that I really, really wish that I was across was the concept of being focused on process. Our industry is as much process as it is creativity, 100%. So without doubt, we are 50% creativity, 50% process. We are logistics heavy. We, you know, whether you hold stock or whether you hire stock or whether you use property styling and what you learn in this course to style for friends, it still involves touching things, buying things, hiring things, unpacking things, packing things, setting things up. And so we are very process heavy. So regardless of what business model you end up with, even if it's the business model of visiting people's sites and giving them recommendations, it's still process heavy. You visit the site, you take images, where do you store them, how do you label them, how do you process them, how do you write the report, what's the most efficient way to do it, what's the most effective way to get it so they get deliverability. All of it is process based. And so it's really important that you focus on processes from the get-go. One, because it'll be heaps easier for you. Two, it makes your business very saleable if you have good processes. Three, when your accountant says to you, wow, your staff overheads are a little bit high, how are you going to tighten up those processes? And you go, oh, I don't have processes. We all kind of just do it our own way. You know, four, when you ask someone to come in and help and it's as simple as unpacking the truck and they go, how? And you go, just unpack it. But then they put everything in a spot where you can't find it. You know, so there's so many good reasons to make sure that you have processes sorted in your business. So many good reasons. Now, this one, a lot of people take the wrong way. I wish I'd pay more for stuff. I don't mean I wish that I'd paid more for stock, or I wish I'd paid more for my website, or I wished I'd done a $30,000 marketing campaign. I don't mean that. What I mean is, for the little things, I wished I had paid for rather than trying to work it out myself. So rather than, you know, trying to do my logo myself 3 times, I wish I'd paid someone $400 and then do it for me. Rather than developing my own email newsletter template, I wish I'd gotten onto Fiverr or Elance or Odesk or any of the multiple VA platforms and creative platforms. And I wish I'd paid someone $20, $40, $50, $100 to do it, because there's that whole time is worth money. And so there is that whole, you know, the amount of time I spend to learn it or understand it, how much time and energy does that take, and what is that dollar value worth? Could I have just paid someone to do that for me? Rather than setting up even admin stuff, rather than setting up my own MYOB feed in my bank feed, why didn't I just pay my bookkeeper an extra $40 to do that? Like, what was the purpose of me spending time and energy on that? Yeah, so that's a really big one for me, really big one, that I wished I had done that. Because I think that you can get so bound up in the, I'm a startup, I have no income at the moment, or you know, all those sorts of, and I do believe in being frugal and resourceful, and I do believe in understanding the process of everything. However, there's a point where you have to let some of it go. And so I do wish I'd done that. And part of that is exactly this, getting out of your own way. You know, we have this where none of us are these our first careers by any means. And so there's very much the element of, you know, we bring with us baggage, we bring with us old scripts, we bring with us old stories of how it should be or what it should look like and how it should work. And so it's really important that we go, okay, well, actually, most of that's rubbish, or actually that doesn't apply in this situation. So it's really important that we just try and get out of our own way, which makes a big difference, because that allows us to focus. And with that, the thing that I really want people to think about with this whole idea of focus is, I want people to think about, you know, I want people to think about what it is they actually want their business to look like. or what they want this course to look like for them, how they want it to flow, what they want to get out of it, how they might apply it. Will they apply it? Do you have a concept of what you want your business or your endeavors or your career to look like in a year or in 2 or in 3? Because it will change over time, 100%. If the last 2-3 years has taught us anything, it has taught us that stuff can change like that, literally. And so if we get out of our own way and we get really clear on what it is that will ignite us, what it is that will put us into that state of flow where we go, oh my gosh, is that the time? Oh my gosh, is that the time? You know, once we get clear on that and we can focus on that, it actually becomes seamless to make that happen. And everyone's, one thing that I think is such a gift about learning in this space and working in this space is there are so many different ways to roll. Yeah, so it's everything from, I want to learn about property styling because I want to look at my own home with fresh eyes, or I want to look at other people's with fresh eyes, or I've always been interested, or I want to work for someone else. I want this to be part of a qualification that I can work for someone else, or I want this to be, you know, my next career or my next big thing. Like, and even when we say that, even when we say, you know, we want it to be our business, there are so many versions of this to create business. There are so many ways that a property styling business can come to fruition. It is by no means linear. And, you know, you start here and you end up here and then you're amazing. You know, if we look at amount of stock or number of clients or whatever it might be over our membership, when I look across our membership, we have people hitting highs and kicking goals at all different levels of it, So yeah, I think it's really important that once you get clear and you are focused about what you want out of the course, what you want to achieve. And you know what? I know, Michelle, you might be in this boat. I know the amount of courses I enroll in because I want to learn things, and I don't even complete the assessment because I'm not interested in the qualification. I'm interested in learning. And some people learn via assessment. Other people learn just by reading, doing, and assimilating. So, you know, it's really different for everyone. And it's important that once you get clear and once you focus, most things will be in flow. Now, does anyone have any questions to this point?
No, not as yet.
Not so far, no.
All right. Why don't we all go grab a fresh cuppa and we'll be back. Because one thing I'd like to talk about, let's face it, I could talk all day. So let's go grab a cuppa and let's come back in, let's say 5. Is that cool with everyone?
Sure.
Great.
Thank you. Yep.
Hey everyone, back again. Everyone got their tea? All right, I don't know about you guys, I have pets sitting at my feet. Has anyone else got pets at their feet? No, and I just said to my puppy dog, I'm like, go talk to Bailey, which is my eldest son. He's like, no, I'm going to the gym, go talk to mum. I'm like, okay, great. So she's sitting back at my feet. All right, let's get started again. Anyone have any questions about anything so far? Doesn't have to be anything we've talked about this morning. It could be about life, love, the universe, the course, anything.
No, not so far.
Okay, right. You'll notice that I'm often writing little notes as I go. It's a little,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a little trick. So I often find, I don't know about you guys, if I go away on a course or a conference or anything, I find sitting down, or even when I teach, when I'm talking on stage, or running a retreat, I find that being in the one spot and being not busy with other things. I don't have my phone with me. I don't have my kids with me. I'm not cooking. I'm not driving. I'm not doing anything. That doing one thing. So just being here in the space with you guys, I often find that I get little remember this? Have you thought of this? Have you done this? What's happening with this? And one of the things that I do, I have my book in front of me so that when they come in, rather than get distracted and be like, I've got to remember that, I've got to remember that, I've got to remember that, I quickly write them down so that I can stay in the stream. Because it's very much, and sometimes they're destructive thoughts, other times they're ideas. And so it's good to not ignore either, because if you ignore your destructive thoughts, or did you put the bins out, or have you invoiced that person, you won't be staying as present in this flow as you should be. However, the other part is when the ideas come in, or the, oh my gosh, that's what I'm going to do with that, or that's what I'm going to put with that, whatever it might be. Again, it's good to capture those, because I don't know, have you guys heard the analogy of the idea thing? So I'm a big believer that ideas are energy, and that when an idea hits you, you can guarantee that it has immediately hit someone on the other side of the world at the same time. And they're really just parcels of energy that want attention and they want to be birthed. And so, you know, an idea will flutter past your ear, or an idea will tickle you with a feather, or an idea will hit you with a brick, and eventually the idea will be like, oh, they mustn't be interested in me. I'm going to come to fruition with someone else. Like, have you ever had that moment where you come up with this idea and you sit with it a bit, and then literally you see on internet or on Instagram, someone has literally birthed the exact same thing? And that's because the idea is energy, and it hit multiple people when it was born, and someone just chose to grab it and birth it before you did. And so back to the book idea. So not only do I try and get rid of distracting thoughts, which you'll often see me sort of just writing something down, I also like to capture the ideas so that the idea knows that I'm paying it attention. I'm just busy right now teaching, but I've written you down and I will revisit you later. And so you'll find that a lot if you go on, especially if you go on retreats, which, thank gosh, post-COVID, we're going to be running some retreats this year, which is very exciting. Yes, very exciting, because we haven't been able to do that for so long now, so we're very excited to be able to do that. So you'll find that when you're on a retreat, one of the things we do when we go on to retreats is we give people a diary, not to make notes of what they've learned, to actually explode with the streams that come into their brain, all the unexpected things, which is one of the beauties of a retreat. It's that, you know, opening up to whatever is out there for you to receive. All right, so now that I've told you about why you'll see my pen jiggling sometimes, let's get back into it. Okay, I'm going to share the screen with you guys again. Let's see if I can move that out of the way. There we go. All right. So people often say, what do I focus on? If I'm just starting out, or I'm 1 or 2 or 3 years into business, what should I focus on? So here are my top tips for that. Maybe 1 to 3 years into business, I'd be focusing on setting up processes, setting yourself up for growth. So being able to handle that next level, thinking about a marketing funnel, growing your database, and looking at your large cost centers. So by large cost centers, I don't mean, you know, well, now a large cost center would be fuel, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have been a couple of years ago, but now a large cost center certainly would be fuel. By large cost centers, I mean things like where logistics and manual labor intensive in our industry. And so when I say large cost centers, I mean like purchase of stock, staff costs, or your time. Your time is a staff cost, 100%. As well as things like storage and insurances. So if you're 1 to 3 years in business, because so many people start their businesses before they actually start to study with us, lots of people, easy 50% of people, they're the things that I would be starting to look at now to set yourself up for your, you know, either 2 to 5 year, 3 to 6 year, you know, 4 to 7 year in business. I'd be looking at your systems, your processes, how you're going to cope with growth, organic or driven, what you're going to be doing for your marketing funnel, how you're going to grow your database, and what your large cost centers are. So let me just go back to, though, if you're just starting out, though, the things I would be thinking about would be confidence, knowledge, a clear direction for at least the next 12 months. So often when you start out, you don't know which direction you want to be heading in. You don't know how you want it to all pan out. You're not sure of what the need is. So for me, when you're first starting out, I'd look at, a lot of people like to finish the course and all the assessments before they begin to work. Other people get like this burning fire in their belly where, they're already gifted and already creative. And as they're doing their course, they, funnily enough, find that because they're so open to it, that things begin to flow and opportunities just stream in, even whilst they're still studying. So whatever it takes or whatever you need to do to help find that flow, to get into that groove, I would 100%, when you find it, embrace it. Try not to have too many constraints or rules around, oh my gosh, I haven't completed my last assessment, I absolutely can't do that job. Please definitely don't handbrake yourself like that. Assess opportunities, be really open and honest with yourself about your skill level, what support you might need around you, and then go from there. The next thing I would focus on if you're just starting out is, as I said, try not to project. It's great to have a really big, hairy goal of what you want business to look like in 5 years, and have that, but hold that really lightly. Yeah, hold that lightly, because, again, if the last 2 or 3 years hasn't taught us anything, it's taught us that it can all pivot and change instantly. We're literally about to do an epically huge rebrand, consolidation, rethink of all of IHS. And it's purely based on the last 3 years. And so even when I thought our trajectory was absolutely set in stone and we were doing everything we wanted to do, and we're doing everything our members and our students wanted to do, and we're running overseas trips, and we're doing massive national conferences, and we're doing national tours, and we're doing all these things. And, if someone had said to me with what we're about to do, which I'm pumped about, if someone had said to me 5 years ago or 3 years ago, even, that's what we'd be doing in 3 years' time, I would have laughed at them. And I would have gone, absolutely not. And, for someone as type A and as much of a control freak as I am, to one of the biggest things I've learned in business in general, pre-COVID, post-COVID in general, is you just need to hold things lightly. Have that big goal and hold that lightly and aim for that, but be prepared that the universe might have other plans for you. You can only know what you think you know, and what you know. There's a whole lot of stuff you don't know. And so it's really great if you hold your big goals lightly, but hold your 3 month, 6 month, 1 year goals a bit tighter, to make sure that you stay focused and that you have some accountability on it. And it's always good every single year, which is why we run our annual retreats every single year, to give yourself the space, the time, the energy, and the support around you to rethink that. Rethink what that might be like. Have a think about whether that is still what you want. And if it isn't, be brave enough to make the change, to make the twist, to make the pivot, to drive to what you do want. So starting out, have a big hairy goal, but focus on your 6 to 12 months goals, because that will keep you targeted. All right, let's look at this list of things. Now, when we look at this, guys, what are the things that stand out the most for you about what you're after and what you want to know most about? So I've covered what I learned. They're the things that I've learned the most and wished I had known so badly early on in business. But of these sorts of things, which is what other people have wanted to know, what could you add to that you'd love us to go over today or this morning? My pen is at the ready.
Naomi, being in Newcastle, are there is there anywhere that you can go to hire stock without buying your own supplies? If you wanted to do a staging. I'll just make that a little bit clearer. I have a friend who he is just finishing building a house that has gone way, way, way over budget, to the point where financially they have to sell it and they have to make a certain amount just to come out even. And because of that, they're not going to furnish it at all. And I just look at that and I think, oh my goodness, no. I know. And but every time I say that, they're like, but we can't afford it. We can't spend one more cent. We've got to. And yeah, everything I say to them. And I said, look, I'll stage it for you free of charge if I can get the stock. But because it's a really large home on the water, obviously I don't have any stock. Is there any way you can hire stock in Newcastle for this type of thing?
At the moment, no.
Bugger.
At the moment, you could approach a couple of companies and see whether they do it as a one-off for you.
Yeah, I tried that, but like they said, that's taking our business away from us. And I understand that as well. I don't blame them.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, the closest, which are amazing, is Findlay & Co. on the North Shore in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They generally don't, I'm not sure whether they're delivering up here, and delivery would be a killer, without doubt. But they'd be your nearest.
Okay.
The other option for your friend is to empty their house. Empty their house.
Well, no, because their house, so this house is in Newcastle, at Swansea on the Channel. But their house that they're currently living in is in Sydney. And from what they've got, these aren't close friends of mine, they're friends of friends. And my close friend who showed me through this house and mentioned it, she said what they've got in their house in Sydney you wouldn't want to use. It's not that great.
Well, at least she's honest. Yeah,
very honest.
Sydney would be your best option, sadly.
Okay, all righty, beautiful. Findlay & Co.
Findlay & Co. And Amy, she's amazing.
Okay,
absolutely amazing. Okay, Michelle, is there anything that's not on this list that you'd love us to go over today?
No, it's a pretty comprehensive list.
Thank you.
It's nothing that I think of. It's standing out.
It's made by students and members, so that's why, because we keep adding to it each time we have one of these days, which is cool. So some of this we've already kind of touched on, but I'd like to go over most of this. If questions come up as we go, please interrupt, because this is kind of the crux. This is based on all of the questions. And for those people, I know there were so many that couldn't make it today. Please feel free. Oh, here you go. Cat out of the bag. I was about to direct you in a direction which would have been inaccurate. So one of the things that we're going to be doing from after today onwards is we're going to, because one of the things we find students struggle with, so many of our students are not out of high school. They're like us. They've had careers, they have families, they have jobs, they have lots of things. And sometimes it's really tough for people to get to this sort of day. And sometimes it's really tough for people then to even sit and watch a recording. Like, a lot of people don't have time to sit and watch a 1 hour recording, a 2 hour recording, when this is full of students, it can be a 7 hour recording. So all our intakes moving forward, what we will be doing is breaking this up into 10 monthly calls, so that we'll be teaching solidly, each of these sort of topic areas over 10 months. So what we will do is we will make that available to you guys as existing students as well, without doubt, from this cohort, which reminds me, I'll write that down, the existing cohort. So what will happen is those that are watching this after the fact, if you have questions that come up about this, rather than having to sit and type it in the Facebook forum, which again takes time and energy on your behalf, you can make sure you're in your email boxes, your inboxes, because each month we'll be teaching one of these. So this day will be broken up over 10 months, which will give people hopefully a lot greater ability to access it. because it won't be a whole day, or more than likely be of an evening. And so we're just trying to find ways that we can support our students more. So for anyone listening, or the people on the call, this existing cohort that is already in the course, this one right now, we'll roll that 10 monthly access out to you guys as well. So as you're studying and learning, you can start to process this as it's happening. How does that sound?
I think that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, great.
It's a big commitment, right? A Saturday morning. And so, you know, when it was in person, it was, you know, a lot easier, I think, for people to be able to justify the time. But in that time, we still had to do a hybrid. We have people all over the country, you know, so we had some people in person and some people online. And so we've just been trying to, one of the things that we're really trying to do, which is why we're also, as I mentioned, completely changing our membership, is we're wanting, you know, everything to be easy for our members. I'm finding people are more time poor now than they have ever been. I don't know what happened in the last 2 years, but it seems most people are resource poor and time poor. And so we're really trying to just change delivery and the way we work things to make sure it's easy and accessible and digestible and all of that for our members and our students. Because there's so much goodness that happens in these sessions. We want people to be able to use it. So I'm glad you guys think that's a good idea. And so I have written a note in my little book. I'll make sure that Fee gets that. When that happens, it will happen, I would think, over the next 8 weeks, that change, before our next intake. I'll make sure that you guys get rolled into that as well. So you'll have that support for the next.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys. I find it's great to have the Facebook group that you guys can all ask questions in, but that takes time and energy as well. You know, it takes a lot of time and energy. You have to be in a spot. You have to be able to describe it in words and type it. And it just doesn't have that same vibe as being able to ask someone questions in person, really. Okay, so let's get to this, quoting. Now, depending on what your business model is, your quoting will be driven by that. So, for example, if you are doing hire from a hire company, let's face it, your quoting and your pricing will be very heavily based on what they charge you. You know, you won't be charging someone less than what you're getting charged to hire items. And so your quoting process can be very, very varied. Depends whether you have stock involved or whether you don't have stock involved. If you don't have stock involved, and say, for example, you're running with a model that is purely consultative, which is awesome. If you're running with that sort of model, you will find that it really depends on the value you want to put into your time. How much do you want to pocket as a wage at the end? What are your overheads of being in a consultative business? And hence, what are you going to charge? A lot of people ask about how, from a quoting perspective, to present quotes. Like, how do I do that? It very much varies around the country. Just writing another note, it very much varies around the country in regard to how you present the quote. Is it per item? Is it per room? Is it per house? Is it, we're going to style your property beautifully and this is how much it's going to cost? Or each of your bedrooms is going to cost this and your living room is going to cost that. Or this is the items we're putting in and this is how much each of them cost. So I have a strong opinion on it, but most people have a strong opinion on whatever they found worked for them. And different people have different models that have worked for them all around the country and still do work. I think it also varies very much on whether you're doing a vacant style or a partial style. So a vacant style is where the house is completely empty and you're bringing everything in, right? Whereas a partial style is where you're working really hard with the client to use as much of their stock as possible in any or all of the rooms, and you're supplementing and bringing other stuff in. So I find you can get away, if you wanted to, with a vacant style of going, we're going to style your whole house and this is how much it's going to cost. You could probably get away with that. As a consumer, I wouldn't be cool with it. But a lot of property stylists are able to do that. But with a partial stage, I think that when people are co-quoting, so they're getting competitive quotes against your quote or alongside of your quote, you need the opportunity to be able to show them apples and apples. You need to be able to say, you know, when they come to you and they say, well, your quote's 5,000, this quote's 3,000. When you're doing a partial style, or even when you're doing a vacant style, how much stock is the $3,000 quote putting in compared to yours? How much styling time are they allocating? Is it insured? Does it cover transit insurance? Over what period of time is it? And so it's really important that without overwhelming, for me, there's a fine line. When we're looking at quoting and proposals, there's a fine line between you know, how much energy you put in and how much detail you give them so they don't hit overwhelm, but they have enough information about your proposal that they understand what's in it and what the value is, and they're able to then compare that to the other people's quotes. Yeah, so that they're able to go, oh, hers is more expensive because, wow, she's giving me 2 lounges, not 1 lounge. And, oh, she's providing bed linen too, whereas this one I've got to buy linen. Oh, she even gives us light bulbs. That's cool. We don't have to do that ourselves. Yeah, so you need to give them enough information. Contracts. Oh, the other thing on proposals and quoting, part of it is also in life in general, part of it is also how are people used to having it presented to them? Yeah, what are they used to seeing? How is it usually presented to them? Because one thing you'll find is that if they're used to looking at it, for example, some people may include delivery and uninstall in their price, other people mightn't. So when you're working with agents, I'd be saying to them, how do you usually have this presented to you? We're really flexible about how we present our quotes. We want to produce, or our proposals, we want to provide it in a way that is most digestible for people and for you. Because realistically, if you have an agent on board, even if a client co-quotes, your agent will more than likely go into bat for you as well, which is great. Contracts, can't stress this enough. Boring, boring, boring subject. The most important thing alongside insurances in our business, you have to have solid contracts. You have to have solid contracts either as a consultant or whether you're hiring to them, covering everything from what happens if the floor gets chipped, who insures it in the home, who insures it in transit, access to the property, returning of the stock, damage to the stock. You know, I mean, every eventuality you could name, and they need to be watertight. As a property stylist, we are in vulnerable positions when we choose to put our assets in someone else's house. We are 100% in a vulnerable position because it's in their house and it's locked with their key. So you need to make sure that your contracts are clear, that they're easy to understand, and that they cover you and they cover the client. A lot of people say, but the agent just signs my contracts. And I'm like, oh, well, the agent isn't the one that's owning the house. The agent isn't the one that has the house that your stock is included in or inside. Is the agent the one that's going to be paying the bills? Very, very important things to think about from my perspective. So I would certainly be making sure that you have contracts and that you have them looked over. We've tried to get pro forma contracts done for years, but every single solicitor that we talk to about, you know, sort of having a generic contract that our members could have that then could get tweaked by a solicitor to their specific circumstance. And I totally get it. Every solicitor says that's great for 80% of people, but there'll be 20% of people that will say, I don't want to spend the money on getting it tweaked. I don't want to spend the time and energy on getting it customized to my business. They'll use the pro forma template and they'll end up in trouble because it won't be suited to their business. So we haven't ever been able to get templated contracts. You're generally looking at least $1,000 to get your contracts drawn up. But I can't stress enough how important it is, without doubt. Gaining clients and advertising. Our source of clients comes generally from two main sources, either direct to you, which can come through a variety of places, or direct from an agent. Without doubt, it is 100% true that most businesses start out by an agent, developing an agent relationship with an agent or an agency. Doesn't have to be the whole agency, it could just be an agent, developing a relationship with them, and then that's where the referrals come from. Great way to have business, great way to start out, great way to build business. But at the same time, it's really, really important that you also get clients from a direct source or other sources. Can never, ever, ever have all your eggs in the one basket when it comes to an agent. Because, you know, they are business people when it comes down to it. And they only have a certain amount of pull over a client. If a client wants to use a different stylist, they have a right to do that as well. So I would advise against having all eggs in one basket, but I would advise with making sure that you have a handful of amazing committed agents that you take very, very good care of. Very good care of. I think it's absolutely essential that you take care of a group of VIP agents rather than trying to service every agent known to man. And whilst you're doing that, whilst you're building your business, I would also start to think about how you can start to get direct clients in, what you're going to do, what's your marketing plan, what's your advertising plan, how are you going to make that happen? So yes, I would do both, and that could be everything from sponsoring a local soccer team where you know, the soccer team plays in your area and you have your logos on the back of their shirts, to going to a local fundraising night and donating your services, to say there's a women's business event, offer to style the stage for them. Yeah, so getting your ability in front of potential client bases is really important. So there are those two ways of advertising, main two ways. One of them is agents, the other one is standard advertising, which can take time and energy, nowhere near as instantaneous as this one, but it's just a pot of gold, absolute pot of gold. Supplies that you need at startup, that's a really big one. So depending on your business model, you're going to need different suppliers. If you're wanting to look into the world of, sorry, just dropped my pen. If you're wanting to look into the world of inventory, then you can totally, you know, totally look at where you're going to store things, how you're going to store it, what bags you're going to use, what boxes you're going to use, what racks are you going to use. How are you going to move it? Are you going to use your own car? Are you going to get in extra help and extra labor? How are you going to make that happen? So there's some of the things that you need to think about from a supplier perspective, as well as a stock perspective. You know, what stock are you going to be using? Who are you going to be using it for? Are you going to launder stuff yourself? Are you going to get it laundered for you? How often are you going to launder it? So all these sorts of things. And it very much requires you to have an idea of where your business model is going to start. What is it going to look like? And just plan for that. If you start to look at suppliers and planning who you're going to need around you for your big, hairy, audacious 5-year goal, you could hit overwhelm within 30 seconds. Whereas if you go, right, break it down into chunk-sized pieces. In the next 6 months, who am I going to need? What am I going to be doing? In the next 12 months, who am I going to be need and what am I going to be doing, so that you can just have it out there. Yeah, you can. So in case those people walk into your life, you can be like, we should get in touch in the next 6 months. I think we might be able to work together. But don't start to look at, you know, for your beautiful big plan that you might have, don't start to look at the suppliers you might need at that point and the team around you, because you could just hit overwhelm instantly. Just look at what you need for the next 3, who you're going to need for the next 6, who you're going to need for the next 12 months. That's a really good place to start, without doubt. Now, minimum stock requirements. I've mentioned this before, and how much stock do you need? If you're not going to hold stock, if you're going to work for someone else, if you're going to hire from a third-party company, if you're just going to consult, you actually don't need stock. Ignore it. It is a bundle of stuff that you don't need to pay attention to right now in business. Or it could be that as part of your consultative role, that for everyone that you consult with, you provide candles for the house, or you provide your signature kitchen range for the house, whatever it might be. But don't get caught up in the whole I need stock. If you're listening to this and you're like, man, Naomi, I live in Dubbo, there's nowhere to get supplies from, I'm going to hold stock. How much do I need? What's the minimum stock requirements? Right. You need to understand how much stock you need. If you choose to go this route, you need to understand what you want your business to look like, what you want your week to look like. So when you look at your week and you factor in, waking up, going to sleep, taking care of yourself, taking care of family or children, if that's required, your existing job, if that's an element as well, how much time do you have left in there? And where are you wanting, what are you wanting to fill that with? 1 installation a week, vacant, partial, 2 a week? How many uninstalls are you going to be having in that time? What's going to be achievable? And it needs to be practically achievable because we're a logistics heavy business. And so once you've worked that out, what you want your days and your week to look like, and so what your capacity for work to look like would be, first you're assessing your capacity. Great. Second thing you're assessing is you're then going, well, if that's the capacity, what do I want from that? If I say, oh my God, I've got the entire week free, I could install 8 houses and pull 4 out. The next question though is that what you want? Is that what you want your business model to look like? Is that where you want to head with it? So the first one is, what do I have capacity for right now? Second one is, what do you want it to look like? And the third one is like, well, right. That then dictates if, so for example, you say, this is my capacity, this is what I want, and I only want to do vacants, then it's quite easy to go, well, hey, you want to do 2 houses a week on a 6-week cycle. So you're going to need 12 lots worth of houses to be able to do as a vacant. If you are a partial person, then that's where it's much harder to quantify. Because you might say, cool, I'm going to do 2 houses a week on a 6-week cycle. But one house, you might only have a van full. Another house might be a complete house and a semi-trailer full. So it really depends on exactly what you're going to be doing. But you need to go through the process for you. I know I've said a lot, but every single home staging business is different, not only because of its model, but also because of the capacity that people might be aiming for. Not everyone is wanting to work full-time in this industry. Some people aren't just wanting to work full-time, they're wanting to have a massive team that they can get out 3 weeks worth of productivity. So I think it's really important that we have a look at this and that you sit down and analyze it and be willing to review it every 6 months, because that will change things. But remember, one of the things that I wish that I had learned earlier is that I bought from wholesalers and I had an idea of what my market needed before I just went and bought stuff because it was on sale and it looked really pretty and I loved it. And I was super excited about my new profession. Okay. What should you spend on and what should you skimp on? Ooh, spend on branding, 100%. Branding is something you don't ever want to change yearly, without doubt. Here's a great example. I spent an absolute fortune on the IHS logo. It was hand designed by the most amazing designer, and he gave me the most amazing advice. He said to me, Naomi, Home Beautiful and Vogue have not changed the type font of their logo, which is just their name, in decades and decades and decades and decades. And he was right. They've tweaked their colors, they've tweaked the, sort of feel of their images, but have they changed the type font of their logo? No, they haven't. So, and I was so glad. The same as my Naomi Findlay brand. Simple type font, simple logo, spent decent money on it and super happy. Does that mean that my imagery doesn't change as I grow older or as my style changes in the work I do? Of course it does. But I'm so glad, because I didn't, in my first business, I did not spend on my logo, and I regretted it without doubt. What else should you spend on? For me, you should absolutely, if you're choosing to use fake flowers in your inventory, you should spend on fake flowers, 100%, and plants, 100%. You can use real plants in your styling, but without doubt, unless you're going to do a weekly top-up service, which some clients, some stylists do, without doubt, you will have to price in the full price of plant replacement into every hire, because unless you're there taking care of them, they will pass, sadly. I would also invest in dining tables and chairs. I find cheap dining tables and cheap chairs don't travel well. So I would invest in those, and I would invest in lamps. Would I invest a lot of money in cushions? I would do hero styling. So I would have lots of fillers that are really affordable. So it won't matter when someone drops a red icy pole on them in a partial style. And then I would have some hero cushions that really anchor it and give it that really bespoke feel. What else would I spend on? They're the main things. You really cannot afford to have cheap small lamps. You cannot afford to have cheap chatty fake flowers and fake plants. And rugs that are too small. Always a bad sign of, or always a good sign of a bad stylist, is rugs that are too small, rugs that looks like pimples on a pumpkin, without doubt. What I would skimp on, lounges. You can get so many affordable lounges from different places all around the country. Luxo Living, Lounge Lovers, IKEA, you name it. There are affordable lounges everywhere. There's some great HJ Furniture is, it might be RJ HJ Living, RJ or HJ Living. They do some really affordable, bespoke, custom ones, because you've really got to be conscious of, when you're selecting your stock, it's not just about what looks pretty, it's also about what's going to fit through the doors, what's going to, so for example, my marketplace was made up of some beautiful big houses, but also some really small units. So we literally had like 2 collections of lounges. One of them was for top of town units that nothing fit through the door if it was over 800 wide. And then we had normal big home furniture. But you've also got to think about how it's going to travel and how heavy it is. I remember the first container I bought in from India, I had some amazing stock on it. My removalist team hated me because some of them were a 4-man lift, which cost me so much money. So that was a huge learn. So they're the things I would skimp on, and they're the things that I would spend on. Now, one person asked me a really great question about what's the best way to obtain reviews and how do we share them? Such a good question. What's the best way to obtain reviews? The best way to obtain reviews is to give great service. And that doesn't just mean the property look great. This is a journey for so many people. So many people might only sell their house once or twice in a lifetime. So it's such a big journey for them. So giving great service and it being a great experience for them is really quite important. So giving great service and then just asking the question, hey, really loved working with you. We're so excited about the outcome you had. Would you be open to giving us a review? And make it easy for them to do that. Give them the link to click on. That's super easy. Whether it's a Facebook review, a Google review, whether it's being cool with you sharing their photos and their, massive result on social media. Whatever way your demographic is going to be able to digest it the most. I know when people send me a thing going, this will only take 7 minutes of your time, I'm like, I'm out. I don't have 7 minutes. Whereas when people stay at my farm and I have to review them in order for them to review me, I know it takes me less than 2 minutes to do the review for them, less than a minute actually. So I do it every single time. So I think it's really important that the best way to obtain reviews is to give great service. The next best way to obtain reviews is to make it easy for them. And if anything, maybe have a couple of different ways you can do it. Like I know that I don't do Google reviews, whereas other people do. I know that there's a certain demographic of older people that do Facebook reviews. And then the younger demographic aren't interested in Facebook reviews. So maybe have a few different ways set up that you can do or accept reviews and send them out so that people can choose which way is going to be better for them. And then how do you share it? So let's face it, not everyone in the world is honest, kind, and solid. And so you need to make sure that your reviews look rigorous. You need to make sure that, you know, anyone can make up a review about themselves. Completely unethical and disgraceful, but people do it without doubt. So reviews that if you have to make up a review yourself, if they write it to you in an email, and so you need to put it together graphically, I would consider asking if you can use their suburb, if you could use a photo of them, and or a photo of their property. Not necessarily, and never a before and after until they're sold. Never, ever, ever, ever. So if you're going to have to make it up yourself to give it more validity and more strength, I'd ask if you can use some of their details. That will depend on your relationship with them. If you can have a photo with them out the front with the sold sign, even with you. But when you're getting a review on Google or you're getting a review on Facebook, they have a lot of validity because it can't be cheated. It can't be created without a lot of effort. And so you can, obviously they live on the platform that they're received on, but you can also screen grab that, pop it into a little graphic, and then use that on all your other social media platforms. So I hope that makes sense. That's like a conversation in itself. That's why I'm so excited about the way we're going to be teaching. That, you know, we can spend 30 to 40 minutes talking about that and really fleshing that out rather than just in this one day, which can be very overwhelming for people. So do you guys have any questions about that at all?
No, I was interested, Naomi, how you started when you left your prior job. What did you do? Did you go and just buy a whole heap of stock? And how do you actually start?
Great question. Super great question. No, I didn't. I didn't go buy a whole heap of stock because, like most people, I had like time, energy, and money constraints. You know, I wasn't able to just go, hey, I'm just going to go like make all this, or I'm going to go buy, you know, $100,000 worth of stock and off I go. Like that doesn't work.
No.
And so I had a plan. I had a 3-year plan of what I wanted to achieve. And at the end of 3 years, I wanted to quit my job. And so that involved one of the most stressful parts of it was, though, and most property stylists will say the same thing. So I bought stock as I went. So I worked out my, you know, what was my capacity over the next 3 months? What did I want it to look like over the next 3 months? So if that was one job out a fortnight or one job out every 3 weeks, what were the things I knew I'd use that wouldn't depend on the look and feel of the house, like the bedding? And so I went and bought, you know, bedding for 2 houses.
And then where did you put all this stuff when you bought it?
I only had 2 kids at the time, and I have 4. So first it went into one of my spare rooms, and then it went into my garage, and then it went into a safe and sound storage unit, and then it went into 4. And then it went into warehouse 1, and then to warehouse 2, then to warehouse 3, and then to final warehouse.
Oh, wow.
So lots of growth and lots of being nimble and moving with it. Because rarely, Kerry, do people have the opportunity, unless they buy a business, to go, oh, boof, here's enough stock for, you know, 20 houses. It doesn't happen. So the stressful part of it is often you have to be really quick acting. So, you know, I did have some staples. I had a couple of staple lamps. I had a couple of staple, I had staple linen. I had some very generic art pieces, and I had the basic foundational building block of cushions. But then I'd have to buy as I went, which can be stressful. At times, even though it's against everything I think and feel, at times it did mean that I had to pay retail for some things.
I was just going to say, when you said you just bought those basics, where did you go even initially to buy them? Or
yeah, so initially I did what we talked about earlier. So I already saw some suppliers. So I researched early before I made the move. So I'd already been to like the Reed gift fairs,
yes,
and the AGHA, so that I could find suppliers that worked for me.
Okay, yep.
And so things like another thing that I skimped on is sheets. No one's sleeping in the sheets.
No.
So, doona covers and coverlets and throws, totally different. But sheets,
Yes.
no one cares about the thread count of the sheet.
Yes.
No one should be getting into that bed.
No.
And so even if they are a partial and someone is sleeping in the bed, they're not sleeping in our linen. They're sleeping in their own linen, and then they're putting our linen on top of the bed on sale day.
Yep.
So yeah, it is a process, it's just setting up any business. You may have the gift, but it's about going, right, what are the basics I might need? And because it does take time, and that does mean that when you get a job coming up, you do have to hustle, and that is stressful. But we're closer to Sydney than we've ever been. So there is the ability to pick up little things from hire companies down there yourself, if a hire company lets you. And places like we have lots of large outlets nowadays that you certainly couldn't furnish an entire home with, because it wouldn't look okay at all. But like the Amarts, the people that hold full stock, the IKEAs, they can be great for top-ups of generic things that you certainly can't present. From my personal opinion, you can't present a Kmart house, you can't present an IKEA house, you can't present an Amart house, without doubt. You can't present a Bunnings house. But you can, when you're starting out, you 100% can use those sorts of places. Like, Bunnings have some great off-the-shelf outdoor and I've been caught out so many times going, oh my God, that house didn't sell in time. I can't get that outdoor table in. I'm going to go to Bunnings tonight and buy another outdoor table.
Yeah.
So it is a real juggle. It's a great question, and there's not an easy, simple answer for it. If you do have a big investor and you're wanting to go that way, 100% do what we talked about earlier with getting the minimum stock, or how much stock do I need? What do I have capacity for? What do I want it to look like? What do I need? But realistically, that's just a tiny percentage of us that start out. And so you really do need to look at the other.
And then do you, or did you, when you had that business, sell that stock after a certain amount of time as things date and change and or not so much fashion, but times change with decorating and things like that?
It's one of the most talked about things in the industry, about how to roll your stock over, what to roll over, and what's worth on selling. And so over the years, we have done so many different models. Keep it until it's absolutely dead, repair it 100 times, throw it out and write it off on tax if it's damaged. Donate it and write it off on tax, so you can donate to shelters. Some stuff you can on sell. We did test for a couple of years. So what we would do is we'd know how much it costs, we'd know how much we could rent it for, we'd wait until it cycled through and paid itself off, and then cycled through the same amount of time again, so it then made money, and then it would still be at a point where it was in decent condition, so then we try and on-sell it. But it really depends on your area, because sometimes the dedication, given how much staff cost in our country, the dedicating a staff member to manning the Facebook or manning the Gumtree. We did have warehouse sales a couple of times. But again, there isn't a lot of weight to put behind used goods in our country.
No.
There just isn't.
No.
And generally speaking, if it wasn't a little bit dated or it wasn't damaged, you wouldn't be selling it.
Yep.
And so you've really got to assess from a manpower perspective or a tax position, whether it's better to write your stock off or whether it's better to try and sell it.
Yep. That
And
makes sense.
you will get asked all the time from clients, oh, that looks so good. Can I keep it? Like, can I buy it off you? And that happens so much.
Yes,
and,
it would.
Yeah, and you can 100%, but you just need to make sure you factor into that the cost of replacing it.
Yes.
And the cost of getting it shipped, getting it assembled, getting rid of the rubbish. Because all of that comes into the cost. So when you buy, say you're right, okay, I'm going to spend $5,000 on stock this month. And so the time it takes you to choose it, find it, liaise with the suppliers, track it, receive it, unpack it, put it together, clean it, get it into your inventory system and get rid of the rubbish and get it up onto the shelf. That's the true cost of that stock. It's not, so if the dining table they want is $1,000 for you to buy wholesale, and so you say, I'm going to sell it to you for $1,100, that's not the real cost to you or your business. So sometimes sometimes I'll be like, man, I love it so much, I'll pay $2,000. At which point you're like, great, all my costs are covered. I've got a client with a raving review. They're super, super happy. Everything's great. You know, but other times when they're like, oh, we thought because it was secondhand, you know, slip you $200, you know. So you have to take that on a case-by-case basis.
Yep. Makes sense. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes.
Have you got more questions, Kerry? I like your questions. Good questions.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of, because you didn't buy a company that was established, did you? You started your own. Yep.
Started my own.
Yes.
Most people do.
Yes.
Most people do start their own, or they work for someone else, as we've talked about before.
Yep.
Because without doubt, like most people that start out and working alone, because we are logistics heavy, you know, sometimes it's not that far into their business that they're like, I could just do with an extra set of hands 1 day a week or 2 days. And
that's what I'd be happy to do for anybody. I really would. I'd love that. Just to get that experience would be fantastic.
And a lot of people don't want to run their own business.
No, I don't either.
A lot of people don't want to. A lot of people, it's like, I just want to work in the industry.
Yes, me. That's me. Yes.
Which I totally get. It's not for everybody.
And the other thing I've noticed, because I've been going to quite a few open houses lately, my girlfriend is looking to buy. She's just sold her big family home and she's looking to buy. And she's on holiday. So I said, look, I'll do the open houses for you and just give you some feedback. And
perfect. You're a good friend.
Well, but it's also really interesting because you can obviously tell straight away the houses that are staged and that are not, and you just realise how very important it is for the staging to happen. Like, I didn't realise even as much as I did this week until I went through quite a few, one after the other. And the other thing is quite a few are, the stock is very similar. Once it's staged, there seems to be quite a theme, and you'd have to be very careful not to buy stock that was right on point right now, because I keep saying fashion, but it's not fashion, but stock design. It changes, and you don't want to be locked into that market of, but that's a bit outdated, even though it's just for styling.
100%. And it's really important. So when people are choosing this stock, it's absolutely essential that people understand that it's not about what's trending right now. Sometimes stock might need to last you 5 or 6 years. So it's an absolute trap for people entering the industry that are like, my competitors' stylists aren't on trend. I want to make sure that I'm absolutely amazing and on trend. And it's like, well, that's great, but you're not going to be on trend in 12 months.
No, that's
so
right.
you will be absolutely under the pump and people will be raving about you for 12 months. And then you're going to become that person that's not timeless, that's outdated. So it's such a trap for people starting out their businesses, because it's very easy to get ahead and to look better than the competition when all your stock is like crazy new. But if everything you have is on trend and current season, you're going to be like in 12 months.
Yes, which follows suit for your own home, I guess, too, when you're doing interior design. It's just so much more important and cost effective to stay as neutral as you can, and then add those quality pieces to make it stand out and look beautiful.
100%. And it's exactly the same, but what you need to make sure you do in property styling is it needs to be transferable across multiple genres, property types, multiple architectural types, and multiple price points. So buying stock is so important. When you're choosing your stock, if you're choosing to hold stock, it's so important.
Yeah. Super
important. How are you doing, Michelle? Are you feeling okay? I'm super conscious that you're sick.
No, I'm okay. Just taking it all in.
Good. There's a lot to process.
Yes.
There's a lot to process. Okay. Well, what we might do next is, so that's it. That's like usually what we do when we have 15 to 20 people on is we'd spend the rest of the day going through where they're at, how we can help, what's going on for them. So and that's why I mentioned about opening up our new model to this existing cohort. And I think it's just the universe showing me up front that our new model is the way to go when there's so many people that weren't able to get on today. So for those that are listening to the recording, and obviously Kerry and Michelle, to both of you, we will probably wrap this morning up here, but we want you guys to know, especially those listening, if you get to the end of the recording, that Fiona, once we start these monthly calls, which will be expanding on covering this and more stuff, if when you get the email going, hey, Naomi's going to be talking about inventory this week, or Naomi's going to be talking about marketing this week, or whatever this month, whatever it might be, if you have questions about them, this will be open, because so many of you couldn't get on today. This will be open for you all to get onto that as well. Which means that you'll be able to get that live, come back at ya, topics and teaching and your questions being answered in that time. They will also be recorded if you can't get onto them, but we're hoping by sort of spreading them out and changing the times that we can get more and more people to be involved and get help to more people that are after it. How does that sound, guys?
Sounds fine.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap today up. I hope, Michelle, that you start to feel better. And Kerry, it was so good to be able to answer some of your questions. They're really great.
Thank you.
Keep an eye on your inbox, guys. Make sure that you stay subscribed. There's going to be a lot of information coming out about our big Naomi throwing everything up in the air. I am in the middle of doing it at the moment. So there's going to be a lot of emails coming out about, changings of brands and databases and changing into memberships. So just have a read of them, get back in touch with us if you have any questions. And I can't wait for the new iterations of IHS and the changes and the letting go of what was before and the embracing, because I'm truly starting to feel in my little belly that we might be on the other side of things, and I just can't wait to swing back into action, so to speak.
Good. Sounds great. Exciting.
Right. You guys have an amazing end of weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi.
You're welcome. Bye, Kerry.
Bye. Bye, Michelle.
Listening later.
Yeah. Bye. Hope you feel better, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
bye.
You. Bye.